The girl living right across from me has this wild habit of leaving her curtains wide open. Every single night, like clockwork, I get a front row seat to her living room yoga routine. We are talking a crisp white sports bra, skin-tight gray yoga leggings, absolutely peach-perfect glutes, sculpted shoulders, legs straight out of a top-tier anime, and a face radiating the absolute peak of innocent allure. I am not proud to admit it, but I have been secretly watching her for a solid 2 weeks now. Hey, do not get me wrong here. I swear I am not some neighborhood creep. It is just that my brutal coding job keeps me working overtime until 11 p.m. every single day. And the second I drag myself home and crack open my laptop to keep grinding through code, I look up, and bam, there is her window staring back at me. There she is, directly across the alley in a brilliantly lit room, with zero obstructions blocking my view. I swear, I even tried spinning my desk chair 180 degrees to face the blank wall just so I would not look, but fate is cruel. Right there in the dark reflection of my monitor, I could still see her perfect silhouette. Desperate, I reached up and tried yanking my own curtains shut, but the cheap curtain rod was totally loose, getting jammed halfway across with an ear-piercing metal screech. The noise startled her so badly she snapped her head up and looked right over at my window. With that single, heart-stopping glance, I panicked, diving straight under my desk and cowering in the dust for 3 excruciating minutes. Breathing hard, I promised myself I would absolutely buy a new curtain rod tomorrow. But, as these things usually go, tomorrow quickly dragged into a solid 2 weeks. I had shamelessly evolved from nervously, accidentally glancing on day 1, to brewing myself a nice hot cup of tea, pulling up a comfy chair, and tuning in right on schedule. My sense of morality became exactly like my messy code. Super well structured at first, but getting messier and buggier the longer it dragged on, until I eventually just threw my hands up and deleted the whole damn thing. Finally, on the 15th night of this madness, I made a life-altering decision. I could not keep living like this. I was going to march my butt downstairs, confidently knock on her door, introduce myself, and actually get to know her like a normal, functioning human being. I scrambled into a fresh, clean tea and desperately tried to fix my messy hair in the bathroom mirror. Okay, fine, you caught me. The ugly truth is I spent a solid 20 minutes obsessively styling my hair in that mirror. I even slapped some expensive toner onto my pale face, a bottle I impulsively bought during last year's Black Friday sales that was basically still 95% full. I sucked in a massive breath and yanked my front door open, only for my doorbell to suddenly ring. Wait, I was not imagining things. Someone was actually standing there, aggressively ringing my doorbell. I blinked, and right there on my doorstep stood the yoga goddess herself, holding a vibrant fruit platter and rocking a completely harmless, gut-wrenchingly innocent smile. Hi, neighbor. I moved in not too long ago. It is so nice to finally meet you. I opened my mouth to speak, but my overworked brain felt exactly like a crashed server. Spinning, loading wheel, blue screen of death, forced restart. She was just standing there, radiating beauty, less than 2 feet away from my sweating face. She was already criminally unfair to look at from across a window, but up close, just the soft flutter of her long eyelashes made me completely forget every single word of my rehearsed speech. By the way, she murmured, tilting her head and asking super casually, as if we were just making light neighborhood small talk, "Are your curtains broken?" Because every single night, right when my lights are on and I am deep into my stretching, I look up and see your face literally pressed against the window glass. In roughly 0.3 seconds flat, every ounce of blood in my body launched a full-scale mobilization from my freezing limbs straight up to my burning cheeks. You have been watching me for about 2 weeks now, right? It was over. Absolute total social death. Time of passing. Tonight. Age of death. 28. Cause of death? Shamefully peeking at the gorgeous neighbor practicing yoga, caught completely red-handed by the victim herself. Epitaph on my tombstone? The damn curtains really were broken. I did not. My clumsy tongue instantly tied itself into miserable knots. My curtains, they really are broken. I swear, I have been meaning to fix them, but I have just been getting crushed with crazy overtime lately. She did not say a single word back, just staring me down with a knowing, playful curl at the corner of her perfect lips. That devastating look on her face basically screamed out loud, "Oh, please, keep making things up, buddy. I am all ears." I completely cracked. I could not keep the pathetic lie going. "I am so sorry." She let out a soft, musical laugh, casually pulled a sleek card from her pocket and slid it right into my hand. I nervously looked down at it, a shiny membership card for Willow's yoga studio. Since you clearly love watching so much, she teased, why not come over and see it in person? With a wink, she added, new members even get 20% off. Then she just turned on her heel and walked away, her steps practically floating, that cute ponytail swaying hypnotically back and forth. I slowly pushed my door shut, sliding miserably down against the wood until I hit the floor. Clutching that tiny membership card in my sweaty palm, I stared completely blankly at the name Willow for 10 straight minutes. Damn it, even a beautiful name like that is just completely unfair. I frantically whipped out my phone, booted up a search engine, and desperately typed, what on earth to do if your neighbor catches you peeking? Result number 1, immediately call the police. Result number 2, pack your bags and move out of state. Result number 3, seek intense psychological therapy. Defeated, I looked back down at the little membership card trembling in my hand. Option number 4, swallow my pride and go to a damn yoga class. By the next afternoon, I found myself awkwardly standing outside her flashy yoga studio, literally on the verge of turning around and bolting for the hills. Peeking nervously through the giant, crystal-clear glass doors, I could clearly see the massive room was packed entirely with fit women, ranging from their early 20s all the way to their fabulous 50s. I took one massive, grounding breath and finally pushed the front door open. The bubbly girl running the front desk snapped her head up, her eyes immediately lighting up with recognition. Oh my God, you must be Mr. Stone, right? Willow specifically warned us all about you. She actually saved the absolute best spot just for you, right up in the very front row. Wait, the front row? She definitely had not used her inside voice, and suddenly, several of the older ladies inside the studio snapped their necks to stare at me all at once. Man, how do I even describe that terrifying, judgmental look? It was exactly like excited zoo visitors suddenly spotting a confused little duck hopelessly wandering into a vicious chicken coop. Well. So this is the famous neighbor our Willow was talking about. An older lady in purple yoga pants leaned in and whispered to the woman beside her. Well, I say whispered, but it was loud enough for the entire street to hear. He is actually pretty handsome, huh? The other woman nodded in agreement. A young man doing yoga? That shows he is really proactive. I desperately wanted to shout, "Ma'am, you have completely misunderstood my reason for being here. I am not proactive at all." When Willow finally stepped out of the locker room, I was just standing there, feeling completely helpless. I was absolutely frozen on a yoga mat in the very front row. She had changed into a sleek black athletic outfit, her dark hair pulled back into a high ponytail. Spotting my terrified expression, that familiar, playful curl returned to the corner of her lips. All right, everyone, let us get started. She kicked off the class looking completely professional and effortless, her voice ringing out pleasant and clear. As she led everyone through the warm-ups, I stole a quick glance around the room. The studio was packed with older ladies, and absolutely every single one of them was way more flexible than me. A 70-degree side bend was as easy as breathing for them. Meanwhile, when I bent just 30 degrees, my back was already popping with horrifying noises that definitely should not be coming from a young person. The lady in the purple pants shot me a deeply sympathetic look. Then, Willow began walking around the room to correct everyone's form. She stepped up to each person, gently adjusting the angle of an arm or fixing the alignment of a waist. When it was finally my turn, she crouched down right in front of me. Close. She was way too close. She pressed her warm hand against my lower back, pushing down until my spine let out a loud, brutally crisp pop. All the ladies gasped in unison. "Oh gosh, you're back." She frowned down at me. "Are you 28 or 82? I honestly wanted to die right then and there. A bit later, she had everyone attempt some kind of terrifying pigeon pose. While the rest of the room was seriously struggling their way through the motion, I just collapsed completely flat onto my mat, utterly giving up in the absolute most undignified posture possible. Sprawled face down with my head totally buried in the mat, I decided I would just spend the rest of my miserable life right there. But then, I heard soft footsteps come to a dead stop right by my ear. She crouched down again, leaning in intimately close, and lowered her voice so that only I could hear her. "Your posture when you are pressed against your window at home is way better than this." My face instantly burned hot enough to fry an egg. No, scratch that it was hot enough to smelt solid steel. After class, I limped down the hall, every single muscle screaming and aching. I felt like my entire skeleton was falling apart with every agonizing step. Suddenly, Willow caught up from behind and handed me a cold bottle of water. As I took it from her, my trembling fingers brushed gently against hers. With just that tiny spark of a touch, I clenched my hand and almost crushed the plastic bottle. "Thank you," I blurted out, my nervous mouth running miles faster than my brain ever could. "When you are teaching, you are also really—" I stopped dead right halfway through the sentence. I froze in sheer panic. Really what? Really beautiful? What the hell was I even saying? You came here to atone for your peeping sins, bro? Not to commit brand new ones? Really what? She just looked right at me, waiting. Really. Professional. Please just kill me now." She let out a beautiful laugh. "Well, that is a much more normal compliment than staring at me through a window. You are definitely making progress." After she walked away, I stood outside the yoga studio for a long moment, completely captivated as I watched her gorgeous figure disappear down the hallway. Oh man, I was absolutely, completely falling for her. After that, I actually started going to her yoga class consistently, 3 times a week, come rain or shine. From the very first day when I could not even get off the mat, to the second week when I could barely keep up with her pace, all the way to the third week when I miraculously pulled off a perfect Warrior 2 pose. Even though my legs were shaking like a leaf in a hurricane, at least I finally stayed upright. The lady in the purple pants literally led the entire room in a massive round of applause for me. The emotional look in her eyes was exactly like a proud mother watching her total deadbeat son finally pass a test with a decent grade. Those sweet older ladies even gave me a special nickname, Window Boy. I desperately wanted to explain that the true origin of this nickname was highly, highly embarrassing. But explaining the peeping incident would obviously only make things a million times worse. So, like a smart guy, I simply chose to keep my big mouth completely shut. Over the next few weeks, my relationship with Willow beautifully evolved. We went from me being awkwardly caught red-handed to becoming friendly neighbors who actually nodded and smiled warmly at each other. After class wrapped up, she would occasionally chat with me for a bit, asking if work was crazy busy or how late I would be working overtime that day. Every single time she spoke to me, I tried my absolute best to act like a perfectly normal human being, but the frantic thumping volume of my heartbeat was probably loud enough for her to hear from a mile away. On Sunday night, my mom called on FaceTime right on schedule. "Son, why does your voice sound so different lately? You sound so incredibly full of energy." "Mom, I have been working out." "Oh? With who? A trainer, a handsome guy, or a pretty girl?" "All right, Mom, I am hanging up now." "You little punk, Harvey Stone. You better tell me right now. Is it a pretty girl? When exactly are you bringing her home to meet me?" After hastily hanging up the phone, I sprawled back in my desk chair. Purely out of habit, I looked up out my window. The warm lights were glowing at Willow's place across the way. She was not practicing her yoga tonight. Instead, she was curled up comfortably on her couch, holding her phone. The soft glow of the screen beautifully lit up her face. Suddenly, my own phone buzzed on the desk. It was a text from her. "In class today, your Warrior 2 pose really was not bad at all." I texted back. "Really?" Because I felt like I was shaking out of my skin. "Oh, you were definitely shaking like crazy," she replied. "But you held your ground." I thought about it for a second, then typed out, "Thanks, Coach Willow." The second I hit send, calling her Coach Willow felt way too stiff and distant. I panicked and tried to unsend it, but that 2-minute window had already slammed shut. Her reply popped up, "Stop coding and go to bed. I can literally see the glare from your monitor all the way over here." I glanced up at her apartment. She was looking right back at me across the dark gap between our windows. Neither of us said a single word. I just held up my phone and gave it a little wave. She held hers up and waved back. Then, right on cue, we both flicked off our lights. I had total insomnia that night, but for once, it wasn't from anxiety. I just couldn't stop grinning. For 28 years, I've punched my pillow out of sheer frustration, but this time, lying awake felt like absolute bliss. Fast forward to the day our company's annual physical results dropped. I honestly thought the system was glitching. My report from last year, straightened cervical spine, L4 and L5 lumbar disc bulging, early signs of frozen shoulder, and sky-high triglycerides. You know, the classic tech industry corporate slave package, but this year's report, completely, 100% normal. I double-checked that thing 3 times to make sure it was my name and my tired face on the photo. Whoa, Harvey, what kind of magic pill did you take? That was Chance, a guy on my dev team. He was practically hanging over my shoulder, snooping at my medical report. He wore that textbook look of fake, surface-level concern, masking total sarcasm. See, the thing about Chance, how do I even explain him? He acts like your absolute best bro to your face, but he will gladly stab you in the back without blinking. Just last month, I busted my ass writing up a massive tech proposal, and this snake just swapped out the cover page at our weekly meeting and presented the whole thing to the executives as his own work. I knew exactly what he did, but I kept my mouth shut. Because having severe social anxiety isn't really about being afraid of people. It's about being terrified of conflict. Dealing with code is just so much easier. Code never gives you passive-aggressive attitude or tries to screw you over. No magic pill. I've just been working out a bit, I muttered, quickly packing up the report to get him to back off. Man, what kind of workout gets those kinds of results? Chance pushed, not letting it go. The gym. Yoga, I answered. He froze for a split second, then let out a laugh. And trust me, there were a lot of layered insults packed into that laugh. Yoga? Damn, Harvey. You're really taking good care of yourself, huh? I didn't take the bait, but I caught a weird, calculating flash in his eyes. Whatever. I shoved it out of my mind because honestly, who cares? I headed straight over to see Willow, clutching my physical report like a trophy. I just wanted to thank her. After all, surviving this past month of her grueling yoga classes had literally dragged me out of the toxic abyss of tech industry burnout. But the way she reacted when she looked at the clean bill of health completely threw me for a loop. With a knowing smirk, she whipped out her phone, swiped to a photo, and held it right up to my face. It was a dark silhouette of me leaning against my window frame, clearly taken from the exact angle of her living room. Against the harsh backlight, you could clearly see my whole outline. Neck craned way forward, shoulders hunched up to my ears. I looked exactly like a sad, deformed lizard, splayed out on a rock. Look at your posture right here. She tapped the screen with her finger. Your head is jutting forward by at least 2 inches. You've got intensely hunched shoulders, severe anterior pelvic tilt, and your lumbar spine is completely overcompensating to keep you upright. I didn't even need an X-ray to tell you that your L4 and L5 discs were crying for help. Before my brain could even process the creepy fact that she had secretly taken a picture of me, she swiped open her notes app. Staring back at me on her screen was a highly detailed, comprehensive training routine. The title read, Rehab Plan for Mr. Window. The creation date was from a month and a half ago. That meant before she ever even knocked on my door to confront me, she had already meticulously plotted out a full physical rehab plan for me. Completely stunned, I scrolled down the page. Phase 1. Deep cervical flexor activation training targeting forward head posture. Phase 2. Core stability training targeting lower back issues. Phase 3. Rotator cuff strengthening to prevent frozen shoulder. Every single bullet point painstakingly listed the exercise name, the exact sets, reps, and super specific breathing instructions. I just stared at it, totally speechless. Did you actually think I dragged you into my class just to punish you? She tilted her head, giving me this soft, questioning look. I gulped. Wait, was it not? Listen, if you didn't fix that horrific posture, you would have been a permanent resident at the hospital before you even hit 30, she said, casually sliding her phone back into her pocket. I'm a yoga instructor. Seeing your broken posture every night just triggered my professional instinct. I had to fix it. She said it so breezily, her tone as casual as if she were just commenting on the nice weather outside. But I wasn't stupid. I had seen the creation date on that note. Back then, we hadn't spoken a single word to each other. She literally saw some random guy with terrible posture staring out his window and sat down to draw up an entire customized physical rehabilitation plan just for him. And then, she marched over to my apartment with a peace-offering fruit platter, using the most graceful, stubbornly dignified excuse possible just to get me to join her yoga studio. Driven by some sudden reckless impulse, I looked right at her and blurted out, "Okay then, what about you refusing to close your curtains back then?" Her perfectly composed expression completely shattered for about 2 seconds. Then, staring me dead in the eyes with a totally straight face, she lied. My curtains were broken too. Yeah, right. Your curtains were definitely broken. I knew that brand new looking set, the one with the perfectly smooth tracks, was completely busted. But I didn't call her out on it. Honestly, I just didn't want to break the spell. From that day forward, our relationship evolved from a simple yoga instructor and her awkward student into neighbors who actually texted each other all the time. She would shoot me stretching reminders at 9 p.m. sharp, and I would order late-night takeout for her after her evening classes wrapped up, since she always forgot to eat. I'd always write on the delivery notes, "Just leave it at the door." But without fail, every single time, she would text me a photo of the takeout box with a cute caption like, "Oh my gosh, this sweet and sour pork you ordered is absolutely amazing." One night at 1 a.m., I was grinding through some crazy overtime, coding until my eyes literally went blurry. Out of pure habit, I glanced over at the apartment across the alley. Her lights were still blazing. She wasn't practicing yoga, though. She was just leaning back on her couch, staring at her phone. Suddenly, my phone buzzed. A text from her. "Harvey, stop coding. It is time for bed." I quickly looked up, and there she was at the window right across the way, smiling and waving at me. I grabbed my phone and furiously typed back, "You're not asleep either?" She replied instantly, "I'm waiting for a certain someone to turn off his lights before I can finally get some sleep." Man. That night, I turned off my lights faster than I ever had in my entire life. But things took a wildly ridiculous turn the night Hank randomly showed up. Everything just derailed into absolute absurdity. Hank is my loudmouth childhood buddy from college. He works in sales, meaning his mouth runs way faster than his brain. I swear, the most highly developed organ in his entire body is his vocal cords. He said he wanted to crash at my place for a few drinks, and I just agreed without overthinking it. The exact second that guy walked in, he started raiding my fridge for beer, digging through my bookshelf looking for juicy gossip, and snooping through literally everything on my coffee table that didn't look like it belonged to a nerdy programmer. "Whoa, what's this? A yoga class schedule?" He snatched it up to get a closer look. "Wait, you're doing yoga? And who the heck gave you this cute flower pot on the windowsill? You don't even keep plants, bro," I mumbled. "Just a neighbor." "Oh, really? And this VIP membership card? Willow's yoga studio?" He raised a highly suspicious eyebrow. "Wait, who is Willow?" I didn't say a single word, but my goofy expression probably gave everything away, because Hank immediately flashed this sleazy, textbook paparazzi grin. "Holy crap, Harvey, you've actually got something going on." He snatched my unlocked phone and started swiping through my photo gallery before I could even stop him. The total lack of privacy between bros made me regret my entire life, choices 10,000 times over right then and there. Of course, he stumbled straight onto a group photo taken at the yoga studio. It was from a recent studio event, where Willow had playfully dragged all of her students in for a big group picture. I was hiding in the absolute corner, and she was standing dead center, shining like a star. Hank zoomed in on the photo, but once he got a clear look at Willow's face, his whole vibe just dropped. It wasn't that classic, my man, nice job smirk anymore. His face actually went completely pale. "Harvey," he set the phone down, his voice suddenly shaking with pure shock. "This girl, what exactly is your relationship with her? She's my neighbor, and my yoga instructor." "Wait, what's wrong? Are you totally sure you didn't know her from somewhere before?" "I literally never met her before I moved into this building." Hank took a deep, heavy breath and spoke in a grim tone, like he was handing down a literal death sentence. "Bro, this is Chloe's best friend." I froze for a second. "Chloe?" That name sounded vaguely familiar. "My ex-girlfriend." "Man," Hank snapped, completely panicking. "Back in sophomore year, Chloe and I had that messy breakup, and her absolute best friend in the world was this exact girl, Willow. Do you really think I could mistake her face? Back then, Chloe used to drag her along to hang out with me every single day. How could I possibly be wrong about this?" The more he spoke, the more worked up he got, jumping up and nervously pacing back and forth across my living room rug. "Bro, seriously, just think about it for a second. She miraculously moves in right across from you, deliberately leaves her curtains wide open, deliberately comes over to strike up a random conversation, and then deliberately drags you into her yoga studio. Don't you think this entire crazy sequence of events is just a little too perfectly smooth to be a random coincidence? What are you even trying to say, Hank? I'm saying she is getting revenge on me." Hank violently slammed his hand on the coffee table. "I was the absolute jerk who dumped Chloe back then. Her loyal best friend has been holding a massive grudge ever since. She's getting close to you, just to get back at me?" "Exactly. She's going to make you fall head over heels in love, and then brutally dump you just to make me feel overwhelmingly guilty. Harvey, you're nothing but a pawn in her twisted game." "Hey, don't look at me like I'm crazy. He frantically pulled out his own phone and scrolled through his messy camera roll for ages, eventually pulling up an old screenshot. It was a buried post from Chloe's social media feed from 2 whole years ago. The attached photo clearly showed 2 girls happily raising their glasses together at a bar, and one of them was, undeniably, Willow. The caption boldly read, "Willow is the absolute best for getting revenge for my sweet Chloe." I stared at that damning screenshot for a very, very long time. My rational side kept screaming that this entire conspiracy theory was completely, laughably ridiculous. I mean, Hank's logic was usually even less reliable than his pathetic monthly sales targets, but still, that social media post was terrifyingly real. That photo was 100% real, and the word revenge was staring me right in the face. It plucked a tiny string of doubt deep in my brain, but man, it was loud enough to throw my entire reality completely out of whack. Right after Hank took off into the night, I chugged down half a bottle of beer just to scrounge up some liquid courage, marched straight downstairs, and pounded on Willow's door. When she swung the door open, she was rocking this massive, oversized hoodie with her hair let down, and she literally had the faint grid pattern of a yoga mat still imprinted right on her cheek. She had obviously just been stretching out on the floor. "Hey, what's up? It's super late." But the exact second she noticed the dead serious look on my face, her warm smile instantly vanished. "Just come on in." I collapsed onto her couch, gripping my beer bottle so tightly my knuckles turned white, totally clueless about how to even bring this up. "Do you know Chloe?" She blinked, completely caught off guard. "Chloe? Yeah, of course I do. She was my college roommate. Why in the world are you asking? Then do you know a guy named Hank?" "Hank?" She chewed on it for a second. "Doesn't ring a bell at all. Who the heck is that?" "He's Chloe's ex-boyfriend, and he also happens to be my childhood best friend." Her expression slowly morphed from pure confusion to mild curiosity, and then straight into sheer, unadulterated amusement. "Hold up a second." She threw a hand up in the air. "What exactly are you trying to get at here?" I took a deep breath and unloaded Hank's entire, wildly elaborate conspiracy theory right onto her. The moment I dropped the phrase, "a pawn in your sick little game," I swear I saw the corner of her mouth twitch, trying to hold back a smirk. By the time I finally brought up the whole revenge plot, her look went from mildly amused to downright completely fascinated. "Harvey," she said, staring dead into my eyes, "are you an absolute idiot?" She snatched up her phone, quickly punched in a number, and immediately slapped it on speakerphone. "Ring, ring, ring." "Willow? What on earth is going on in the middle of the night?" The voice on the other end of the line sounded incredibly groggy and half asleep. "Chloe, I need to ask you something real quick. Do you remember a guy named Hank?" There was dead silence on the line for about 5 whole seconds. "Who?" Willow shot me a sharp sideways glance. Her eyes practically screamed. "See? I freaking told you so. You know, the guy you went on like 2 random dates with back in our sophomore year." Willow gently nudged her memory. Chloe seemed to chew on it for just a little bit longer. "Oh, wait, that guy? We literally only met up like 2 times, right? Why are you suddenly dragging him up out of nowhere?" "Because he actually thinks he was the big shot who dumped you." Chloe let out a loud, scoffing laugh. "Wow, that is absolutely hilarious. I was the one who felt zero spark and just decided never to see him again. I seriously cannot believe that dude thinks he actually initiated a breakup. Honestly, men's memories are completely delusional." But Willow pressed the issue even further. "Okay, but what about that dramatic social media post you made 2 years ago? The one talking about getting sweet revenge for Chloe?" The phone line suddenly erupted into coughing fits of genuine, hysterical laughter, the kind that leaves you completely gasping for air. "Oh my God, that post?" Chloe gasped out loud, finally managing to catch her breath. "That was just because you helped me absolutely destroy that internet troll. You know, that total jerk who kept intentionally spamming malicious 1-star reviews on my online shop. I poured my heart and soul into my baked goods, and that toxic troll was trying to completely ruin my business, but you swooped in and totally ripped him a new one for me. Was I not supposed to make a hype post for my bestie? What the hell does that have to do with some random dude named Hank?" Sitting right there on her comfy couch, I felt a massive, overwhelming wave of sheer, unadulterated absurdity wash completely over my body. Willow didn't say a single word. She just sat there, staring daggers right at me. The smug look in her eyes was clearly asking, "So, do you have absolutely anything else you'd like to say for yourself?" But over on the other end of the line, it sounded like Chloe suddenly had an epiphany. Hold up a minute. Willow, did you seriously wake me up in the dead of the night just to ask me about this nonsense? She paused for a brief, tense second. Wait, so that guy who's always pressed up against his window, the cute programmer guy, he's friends with that Hank loser? Please don't tell me you are literally sitting there with him right now. Willow absolutely froze and didn't utter a peep. Chloe's voice instantly shot up like 3 whole decibels. Willow, you literally used to text me every single day saying, "Oh my God, the programmer across the way is pressed against his window again today. He's so incredibly cute. He looks so freaking good in that white t-shirt today. He looks exactly like a sleepy little cat whenever he yawns. And now you're seriously trying to play dumb with me?" The living room went so dead silent that you could literally hear the low hum of the refrigerator. I very slowly turned my head to look over at Willow. Was her face turning red? Oh, it wasn't just a faint little blush. It was a massive, full-blown flush, rapidly spreading from the tips of her ears all the way down to her collarbone. It was a bright, vivid, undeniable, absolutely nowhere to hide kind of deep red. "Hanging up now," she panicked, frantically mashing the button to kill the call. We just sat there, staring blankly at each other. My mouth started moving way before my brain could even catch up. "So, your curtains weren't actually broken this whole time. You were totally the one watching me first, Harvey." And just like that, a massive throw pillow came flying at warp speed right toward my face. I completely dodged it. Wait, no, I totally lied. I didn't dodge it at all. It smacked me squarely in the face, but I couldn't help but grin like an idiot. Sitting right there on her couch, holding my face where the plush pillow had just decked me, I honestly couldn't stop myself from laughing out loud. All because she had secretly said I looked like a cute cat when I yawned. She had practically been gushing to her best friend every single day about how cute I was, all while I was planted at my window secretly watching her for those 2 whole weeks. She had absolutely been watching me for those 2 weeks, too. This entire situation was just so profoundly ridiculous that it felt like God himself was busy writing a cheesy romance novel. And honestly, even though the plot was a little bit cheesy, it was still incredibly, undeniably sweet. By any normal logic, this was the absolute perfect moment to confess my feelings, right? Yeah, no, I completely chickened out. I chickened out for an entire week. During yoga class every single day, I didn't even dare look at her, and honestly, she barely looked at me, either. She used to correct my form in front of everyone, gently pressing her hand against my lower back. But now, she literally just walked right around me. She used to hand me a bottle of water after class, but suddenly, the water was just dumped at the front desk for self-service. The older ladies in class were getting anxious. The lady in the purple pants actually pulled me into a corner after a session. "Window boy, did you get into a fight with Willow?" "No." "Then what on earth is going on with you two? You two used to be making eyes at each other all the time, but now you're acting like complete strangers." "Ma'am, we absolutely were not making eyes at each other back then." "Oh, don't give me that crap, kid. I was dating before you were even born. If you like her, stop dragging your feet. A gorgeous girl like Willow?" The line of guys chasing her stretches all the way across the street. She violently slapped my shoulder, hitting me hard enough to literally rattle my ribs. Another 3 days passed, and I still hadn't spoken up. It wasn't that I didn't want to. It was just that every single time I saw her, my carefully prepared lines completely vanished from my brain, like a massive memory overflow error. The words coming out of my mouth were always pure nonsense, like, "Coach Willow, the weather sure is nice today." Ultimately, she was the one who couldn't take it anymore. After class that day, once all the other students had finally left, she straight up blocked the exit of the studio. With her arms crossed, she stared right at me. "Harvey, do you have something you want to tell me?" My Adam's apple bobbed once, twice, 3 times. "Is there a class tomorrow?" "No." "Then, if you're not doing yoga tomorrow night, could we?" "Harvey? Yeah? I like you." When she said those words, her expression looked completely calm, and her voice was totally steady, too. But the tips of her fingers, crossed so tightly over her chest, had turned completely white. She was clenching her hands so hard. After speaking, her gaze flickered, drifting off to the side for about half a second, before she bravely forced it right back to look into my eyes. "If you like me too, just nod. Don't say anything. Every time you talk, it makes me want to laugh." By the time she reached the very last word, her voice trembled ever so slightly. It was incredibly subtle. If I weren't standing so close to her, I probably wouldn't have even caught it. I nodded. I nodded vigorously, like an infinite loop running a broken script. I kept nodding nonstop until she finally smiled. When her beautiful eyes crinkled into sweet crescents, the bright light from the studio's fluorescent lamps caught her eyelashes absolutely perfectly. I just stared at her for a long time. And this time, I didn't have to be pressed against my window frame to do it. The days right after we finally got together felt almost too wonderfully sweet to be real. We still lived across from each other, and we still never drew our curtains. But the whole dynamic had completely changed. Before, it was nervous peeking. Now, it was an exclusive live stream. While she practiced yoga across the way, she would suddenly pause right in the middle of a pose and flash a cute finger heart toward my window. Over on my side, I'd be deep into coding, and whenever I successfully fixed a totally stubborn bug, I'd pump my fist toward her window in pure celebration. Once, she was halfway through a headstand when she glanced over at my side, burst out laughing, and lost her balance completely, tumbling straight down onto her yoga mat. She quickly texted me, "This is all your fault. Why were you making such funny faces across the way?" I immediately replied, "I wasn't making funny faces. I was just debugging. That was my mask of pure agony." She replied with a ha ha ha, followed by over 60 more characters. I actually counted them. 67. But sadly, the good times didn't last long at all. Things absolutely blew up at work. Our team was setting up a massive, critical project, and we had a major technical proposal evaluation coming up. I had spent a solid 2 weeks drafting the entire proposal, covering the complex architecture design, tech stack selection, performance projections, and risk assessment. Every single page was born from me pulling grueling late nights. The night before the evaluation, Chance was suspiciously loitering around my cubicle. "Hey, Harvey, you finished the proposal, right? Mind sending me a copy to look over? I can help you clean up the formatting so it looks a bit sharper for tomorrow's big presentation." He smiled so warmly, calling me Harvey. His tone was literally sweeter than honey. I hesitated for a second, but then I figured my formatting really wasn't great anyway, and PowerPoint presentations weren't exactly my forte. So, like an absolute idiot, I sent it over. On the day of the evaluation, Chance was scheduled to present right before me. The exact moment he opened his slide deck, my fingers went completely numb. The core architecture diagram, the tech stack comparison table I drew, the performance projection formulas I calculated, even the very specific blue-gray color scheme of the diagrams I had painstakingly chosen. They were the exact ones I always used. He stole everything. He delivered it flawlessly, 10 times smoother than I ever could have pulled off. Chance was just one of those natural-born speakers. As his slides clicked by, the executives nodded along in total approval. Then, it was my turn. I walked up to the podium and opened my proposal. My stomach dropped. It was an identical match to the one Chance had just presented. The manager immediately frowned. "Harvey, your proposal looks practically identical to what Chance just presented." I opened my mouth, but my mind went totally blank. I knew exactly what I needed to say. I needed to scream that this was my proposal, and that he had stolen it. But 28 years of crippling, deep-seated social anxiety flared up in full force at that exact moment. Every single person was staring right at me, their eyes piercing through the blindingly bright lights of the conference room. Chance looked up at me from his seat with this fake, concerned expression, playing the innocent card like absolutely nothing had happened. I couldn't speak. My tongue felt like it was buried in wet cement. Then, Chance spoke up from the audience. "Harvey, are you feeling all right, buddy? Do you want me to present this for you?" I gritted my teeth and muttered, "No, I'm fine." What followed was a total disaster. I stumbled and stuttered my way through the rest of the presentation. My voice shook, my logic was all over the place, and I completely froze up twice. Down in the seats, the executive's expressions shifted from anticipation to utter confusion, and finally, to utter disappointment. Stepping out of the conference room, Chance caught up from behind and clapped a heavy hand onto my shoulder. "Hey, Harvey, don't stress over it too much, man. Just pay a little more attention next time, and you'll do great." As his hand squeezed my shoulder, for the very first time, his touch felt like pure ice. That night, I didn't turn on a single light. I just sat by the window, staring blankly into the pitch-black darkness. It wasn't that my mind was racing with a million thoughts. I just couldn't bring myself to move. I didn't want to write code. I didn't want to open my laptop, and honestly, even breathing felt exhausting. On the windowsill, The small potted plant Willow had given me stood there quietly. Its leaves glistened under the orange glow of the street lamp. 20 minutes later, my doorbell rang. It was Willow, standing at the threshold. She didn't ask what happened, and she didn't demand to know what was wrong. She just pulled me over to the couch, went straight into the kitchen to pour a glass of warm water, and gently pressed it right into my hands. Then, she sat down right beside me, pulling my head down to rest gently against her shoulder. We just stayed like that, in total silence, for a long time. After about 10 minutes had passed, I finally broke the silence. I recounted the entire miserable day to her, from start to finish. When I got to the part where Chance had asked, "Harvey, are you feeling all right?" my voice betrayed me, trembling just a little bit. When I finally finished, she didn't offer any cheap comfort. She didn't give me the usual, "It's okay, don't be sad," speech. Instead, she looked me dead in the eye and said, "You spent 2 weeks glued to your window before you even gathered the courage to make a move. And now this guy blatantly steals your proposal, and you're just going to sit back and take it?" I kept my mouth shut. "Harvey, you're not a coward. You're just kind." Her voice was calm, but remarkably intense. But kindness needs to have a sharp edge. Otherwise, people will just treat you like a doormat. Then, she snapped into action, helping me dissect the whole situation. She didn't understand the complex tech jargon, but she had run her own studio. She knew how to play the boss, and she had gone toe-to-toe with plenty of shady suppliers and landlords. Having dealt with her fair share of difficult people, she ordered me to open my laptop and pull up the Git repository's commit history. Every single commit timestamp, the author names, and the exact code modifications were right there in black and white. The creation date of the proposal document, the last modified date, the version history, and even the chat logs with my colleagues talking about the tech stack selection. It was all there. The timeline was completely airtight. While I was busy digging through the data logs, she stood up, clearing away the scattered takeout boxes on the coffee table. She neatly folded my jacket that had been thrown over the back of the chair, setting it gently to one side. Only after finishing all that did she sit back down beside me. She stared intently at the commit records on the screen for a moment. Even though the code looked like an alien language to her, she could read that timeline perfectly. "It's not that you lack evidence," she noted. "It's just that you never even thought to use it to protect yourself." She guided me through taking screenshots of every last piece of evidence, organizing everything cleanly into a single folder. Then she looked at me and said, "Tomorrow, you don't need to pick a fight, and you sure don't need to whine or complain. Just draft an email to your direct supervisor, and CC, the department director. For the subject line, write, 'Original development history for the technical proposal of Project X.' Lay out the facts plainly, and don't utter a single extra word." I stared at her sitting right there beside me, her face warmly lit by the monitor's glow, looking as intensely focused as if she were plotting a major battle strategy. This woman wasn't just gorgeous, she was an absolute force of nature. Driven by some crazy impulse, I blurted out, "Willow, you might be my yoga instructor, but you're basically my life coach, too." She froze for a split second, then reached out and pinched my ear hard. "Cut the sweet talk and finish writing that email." The next morning at 9:30 a.m., I officially hit send on that email. Attached were the complete screenshots of my Git repository commit history, the exact creation timestamps, the file metadata of the proposal document, and the chat logs of my tech stack discussions. The body of the email was ice cold and concise, spanning exactly 3 lines. Attached are the original development logs for the technical proposal of Project X, including the repository commit history and document creation metadata. Should there be any discrepancies, the system server logs can be verified at any time. No wild accusations, no emotional outbursts, not a single wasted word. Barely 5 minutes after hitting send, the harsh, abrupt sound of a chair violently scraping the floor echoed from Chance's desk. Within 10 minutes, that snake materialized right beside me. His signature fake smile was still plastered across his face, but the raw panic bleeding into his eyes was impossible to hide. "Hey, Harvey, buddy. Is there some kind of massive misunderstanding here? We can totally hash this out in private. Why make such a huge ordeal out of it?" I stared directly into his eyes, and for the very first time, I didn't back down or break eye contact. There's zero misunderstanding. I simply organized the development records. The corner of his mouth gave a violent, nervous twitch. "Harvey, Come on, weren't we just great minds thinking alike? Proposals are just chance. I cut him off, my voice remarkably calmer and colder than I ever thought possible. Your proposal document's creation timestamp was 11:47 p.m., the night before the evaluation panel met. My first repository commit was 2 weeks ago. You can take a minute to figure out how you want to spin that, but I highly recommend you don't waste your breath explaining it to me. Explain it to the director instead. His fake, pleasant smile shattered into a million pieces. That afternoon, management called us in for separate, intense, formal discussions. The technical director pulled the complete Git commit timeline straight from the repository, along with the exact metadata from both proposal documents. The final verdict couldn't have been more painfully obvious. Every single step of my proposal, from the very first line of syntax to the final build, was perfectly verified with an undeniable timestamp. Chance's document, on the other hand, and had been bulk generated the exact night before the presentation, completely filled with massive, unchecked blocks of copy and pasted trash in the file history. 1 week later, a brutal company-wide announcement declared that Chance was officially stripped of his role, kicked off the project team, and slapped with a permanent written reprimand. But the thing that genuinely caught me off guard was what my manager dropped on me right at the end of our talk. Harvey, I've always had a massive amount of faith in your proposal. Leaning back heavily into his squeaky office chair, he locked eyes with me. But do you know why I didn't back you up right then and there during the meeting? I just shook my head. Because you wouldn't even lift a single finger to fight for your own hard work. Your entire proposal gets stolen right in front of you, and you just stand there on that stage like a deer in headlights, without uttering a single word. How could I ever feel completely comfortable putting you in charge of leading this entire operation? He paused for a tense second. But you handled it perfectly this time. You didn't pick some petty emotional fight. You let the cold, hard facts do all the talking. From now on, you are spearheading this project. The absolute second I stepped out of that office, I fired off a desperate text to Willow. I got the promotion, she replied in literally 1 second. Come over tonight to celebrate. I quickly messaged back. Can we please celebrate in a somewhat normal fashion, like just grabbing dinner? She immediately texted back. Not a chance, buddy. Tonight, we're conquering handstands. I groaned so hard internally. Damn it, why does getting a massive promotion mean I still can't escape this brutal yoga? That stiff lower back of yours can't afford to skip out on training. Chuckling to myself, I slid my phone back into my pocket. This crazy woman. There is absolutely no escaping her for the rest of my life. And truthfully, I don't ever want to escape anyway. Once the dust finally settled on everything, I did something that later turned out to be an absolute, catastrophic blunder. I fixed the curtains at my apartment. And by fixed, I mean I replaced the old, flimsy ones with a brand new set of heavy, pitch blackout curtains. My reasoning, at the time, was strictly practical. Stepping up to lead this massive new project meant the overtime was going to be absolutely brutal, and I desperately needed to catch some solid sleep. Getting my hands on a heavy set of blackout curtains wasn't just an option, it was an absolute necessity. The second I finished installing them that night, I yanked those curtains completely shut, crashed onto my bed, and slept more soundly than I ever had in my entire life. But the very next evening, my phone buzzed. The text notifications rolled in. Willow wrote, Harvey. I replied, Yeah? She texted back, You fixed your curtains. I typed, Yeah. I swapped them out for a brand new blackout set. Then, crickets. No reply came back from her end at all. I sat there waiting for 3 full minutes. 5 minutes, then 10 minutes passed in total silence. Just as I was about to text and ask her what was wrong, my doorbell suddenly rang. I swung the door open, and there she stood right at my threshold, holding a colorful fruit platter in her hands. The look on her face was exactly the same as the very first time she had shown up at my doorstep 6 months ago. Hi, neighbor, she said softly, a playful little smirk tugging at the corner of her lips, though there was a hint of something else entirely hiding in her eyes. Did you fix your curtains? I casually leaned against the doorframe, looking deep into her eyes. When I'm doing my stretches and look up, I can't see you over there anymore. She nudged the fruit platter toward me. I'm just not used to it. A huge smile broke across my face. I reached right out, grabbed her gently by the wrist, and pulled her straight into my apartment. Without missing a beat, I marched straight over to the window, gripped that brand new curtain rod with both of my hands, and gave it a massive, violent yank. Clatter! The heavy metal rod, along with the thick blackout curtains, crashed violently onto the floor. A rogue screw popped loose, bouncing away and rolling right under the living room couch. I slowly turned around to look at her. There. See? Broken again. Willow stood dead in the center of my living room, bursting into such intense laughter that she completely doubled over at the ridiculous sight of the ruined curtain rod. This time, she genuinely couldn't hold herself back, laughing so uncontrollably that literal tears started streaming down her face. One of her hands rested on her knee for support, while the other desperately covered her mouth. "Just do your practice stretching over here from now on," I told her. "In my living room? Yeah. It really saves me the trouble of pressing my face against the freezing window frame," I joked, pulling her closer to the glass. "My poor cervical spine finally got fixed, you know. I seriously can't be hunching over like a gargoyle anymore." She gently wiped away the joyful tears of laughter from the corners of her eyes. "Well, what about that broken curtain rod you still owe me? I guess I'll just have to make it up to you with the rest of my entire life." She looked up at me, and I looked right down at her. This time, we were incredibly, dangerously close. We were close enough that I could easily count every single one of her long eyelashes, but I didn't do that, because I finally leaned in and closed my eyes. Flash forward 2 years to our actual wedding day. Hank was up on the stage wearing a slightly ill-fitting suit, awkwardly gripping a microphone, and looking just as completely unreliable as he always did. Hello everyone, I'm Hank, the groom's childhood best friend, college buddy, and his very honored best man." A rather thin, polite scattering of applause slowly rippled through the wedding audience. "Listen, I've seen plenty of crazy ways guys try to win over a wife in my life, buying expensive flowers, designer bags, or flashy cars. But this guy right here, Harvey, he is truly one of a kind." He paused for dramatic effect. His genius method of chasing his future wife was literally pressing his face against his damn window frame, and he did it every night for a solid 2 weeks. The entire venue absolutely erupted into roaring laughter. And what's even crazier, Hank shouted, raising a single finger in the air, before he even had a real chance to make his move. My awesome sister-in-law over there showed up right at his doorstep holding a literal fruit platter. Just to call his bluff directly, I buried my face in my hands up at the head table, completely embarrassed, while Willow sat beside me practically shaking with uncontrollable, joyous laughter. "Not only that," Hank yelled, growing way more animated and enthusiastic as he went on. "I actually almost ruined this entire marriage before it even started back then." I confidently told him that she only got close to him to get some petty revenge on me. Suddenly, a loud voice heckled from the crowd below. "Hank, aren't you thinking a little too highly of yourself, buddy?" It was Chloe, of course. She was chilling in the second row wearing a stunning dark green dress, casually holding a champagne flute, and looking incredibly, perfectly smug. "I honestly don't even remember what you look like anymore," she fired back, instantly sending the entire banquet hall into roaring fits of laughter all over again. Hank just scratched the back of his head awkwardly up on the stage. "Well, anyway, I sincerely wish the happy newlyweds a very long and beautiful marriage." He raised his champagne glass high. "And I also really wish that I'll soon find a lovely wife who doesn't hold such a terrifying grudge against me." Chloe rolled her eyes hard, but a tiny, undeniable smile smirked right at the corner of her lips. Eventually, as the magical wedding reception drew to a close, the satisfied guests began to filter out in small, chatty groups. Clearly fueled by several glasses of liquid courage, Chloe suddenly stood up and shouted all the way toward the head table. "Hey, Willow, back then, were your curtains actually broken, or were you just totally faking it?" The entire room instantly fell, dead silent. A few of the older, gossipy ladies who hadn't managed to leave yet halted right in their tracks, eagerly pricking up their ears for the juicy drama. One older lady wearing flashy purple pants even whipped out her smartphone, holding it high and completely ready to record the scandalous moment. Willow confidently stood up, gracefully sweeping her gaze across the quieted room with a delicate wine glass still in her hand. Then she cast a warm, secret glance at me, the corner of her mouth slowly curling up. "Let me just propose a final toast to everyone here," she announced smoothly, raising her glass to the crowd. "But as for that specific question, my lips are completely sealed." She then downed her entire drink in one impressive gulp. The remaining guests immediately cheered and clapped wildly. Hank hollered from the sidelines, "Oh, come on! She's totally dodging the question." "Her broken curtain was definitely fake," he yelled, right before Chloe hurled a stray grape perfectly at his head just to finally shut him up. "My star student just tied the knot," the lady in the purple pants typed out. posting a video to her social feed. As the wedding crowd thinned out and the applause faded, I leaned in. My voice was a hushed whisper, meant only for her. So, were those curtains actually broken or what? Willow turned her head. I could feel her warm breath as her lips practically brushed against my ear. Mine was totally fake, she whispered, pausing just a beat. Oh, and I'm the one who broke yours, too. I stumbled half a step back, staring at her in sheer disbelief. She just gave me this incredibly sly wink. Honestly, I had my eyes on you from day one. You were sitting right by the window, coding away. The monitor's glare lit up your tired face, but you kept those curtains pulled so tight I couldn't see a damn thing. I spent days agonizing over it. And then, jackpot. I bumped into you in the elevator. You were awkwardly juggling your takeout, trying to get into your apartment. The door practically crushed your foot. You were in such a hilarious scramble, you left your door half open. So, naturally, when I walked past, I just had to steal a peek inside. I noticed the screws on your curtain rod were totally stripped. The curtain could only slide halfway across. So, my master plan? Break my own curtains to match yours. And then, casually practice yoga in my living room for 2 straight weeks. She set her empty wine glass down with a soft clink. I was watching you way before you noticed me. You just never knew. I stood there, completely stunned, just gazing into her eyes. Most of our wedding guests were long gone by now. The banquet hall lights were low, a soft, slow melody drifting from the speakers. Way off in the background, Chloe was arguing with Hank about God knows what. Hank was loud, but man, Chloe was practically yelling over him. I gently pulled Willow's hand into mine. She didn't pull away. Willow? Yeah? Are you still gonna do yoga in the living room? Of course I am. Why do you ask? No reason, I said, squeezing her hand tighter. I just wanted to make sure that I get to keep watching you. Forever. She lowered her head, a soft smile playing on her lips. Watch all you want. No more creeping against the window frame. Now, let's dive into Willow's side of the story. There's so much he has absolutely no clue about, like the fact that me moving into his neighborhood? 0% coincidence. Chloe tipped me off ages ago that a friend's college classmate lived right in that very building. A single programmer, honestly super cute, but socially awkward to a painful degree. At the time, I brushed it off. But when my new yoga studio opened up in the exact same area, I figured, why not rent a place nearby? Night 1 in my new place. I finished unpacking my boxes and casually strolled over to the window. Right across the alley, a window was blazing with light. There was a guy glued to his computer, his face glowing in the monitor's cold light. Every now and then, he'd look up, massage the back of his stiff neck, and dive right back into furiously typing. That one tiny, exhausted gesture of him rubbing his neck, it completely hooked me. I couldn't look away. It wasn't even because he looked hot. It was because he looked so incredibly drained. And as a yoga instructor, I am painfully hyper-aware of bad posture. The way he was slouched over major forward head posture, totally rounded shoulders. Throw in an anterior pelvic tilt, and I didn't even need an x-ray to know his cervical and lumbar spine were screaming for mercy. If he kept coding like a gremlin every single day, he'd be living at the chiropractor's office before he even hit 30. But the real reason I stayed glued to my window wasn't his tragic spine. It was what happened next. He let out this absolutely massive, goofy yawn. I mean, mouth wide open, eyes squeezed completely shut, and then he leaned way back into his chair, stretching his arms out just like a big, sleepy cat. I stood there watching him in the dark, and without even realizing it, I caught myself smiling. But then, tragedy struck. His curtains were usually pulled tight. It left only this frustratingly tiny gap on the right, just enough to see the corner of his desk. I was dying to see more, but those stupid curtains were in the way. A few days later, fate finally threw me a bone. I was coming home from work, and guess who I bumped into in the elevator? He was loaded down with greasy takeout and snacks, frantically fumbling to scan his keycard. His apartment door only opened halfway, practically chopping off his foot as he awkwardly squeezed inside sideways, and brilliantly, he left the door propped open. I just so happened to be passing his floor to grab a package from the stairs. Obviously, I couldn't resist sneaking a quick peek inside. One glance was all it took. The screw on his curtain rod was completely stripped. That's why his curtain was permanently stuck in the middle, refusing to slide shut. And right then and there, the most deliciously unhinged idea popped into my brain. His curtains were already broken, right? If my curtains magically broke too, we'd have a front row seat to each other every single night. So, the very same night, I went straight home, grabbed a screwdriver, and busted my own curtain rod. I know it sounds totally psychotic, but honestly, my logic was flawless. His curtains were already hopelessly jammed anyway, so I just made sure mine magically broke, too. That way, we were playing on an absolutely even field. Technically, neither of us was actually spying on the other. We were just two innocent neighbors who coincidentally had broken curtains. Okay, fine. My logic might be a little twisted compared to normal people, but for the next 2 weeks, I did my yoga routines right in the middle of my living room, every single night. The honest truth is, I didn't even need the extra practice. I'm a professional instructor, and my daily grind at the studio was more than enough, but I kept sweating it out anyway, all because I knew his eyes were on me. I could literally feel it. Sometimes, when I shifted into a tricky pose, I had to deliberately force myself not to turn my head his way, but out of the corner of my eye, peering straight through the glass across the alley, I could see a dark shadow standing completely frozen. He really thought he was being stealthy, but his silhouette pressed against the window frame was crystal clear under the amber glow of the street lamps. I remember being on the phone with my best friend, Chloe, and telling her, "That cute programmer across the way is glued to his window again today." Chloe just sighed and said, "You're not doing this on purpose to tease him, are you?" I defensively shot back, "My curtains are just broken. That's all." Chloe completely called my bluff. "Didn't you literally just brag to me 2 days ago about how flawlessly smooth your brand new curtains were?" I instantly hung up on her. But by the 15th day, my patience had totally run dry. This guy had been glued to his glass, watching me for 2 solid weeks. And yet, he hadn't made a single romantic move. No coming downstairs to knock on my door, no cute little notes slipped under my mat, and absolutely zero attempts to stage a fake accidental run-in at the elevator. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I genuinely started to wonder, did he even want to know me at all? Or was I just free, late-night entertainment for him? So, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I bought a fancy fruit platter, touched up my hair to look effortlessly messy, marched down to his floor, and banged on his door. When he finally opened up, he was wearing a crisp, clean t-shirt. It looked like he had just scrambled to change, and his hair was perfectly styled, too. The absolute split second he realized it was me, the tips of his ears flushed a fiery, bright red. I smirked to myself. "Ah, so you were planning to come see me. You just lacked the guts. Fine, let me take that last step for you. You've been watching me for about 2 weeks now, right?" When I dropped that bomb, I watched his ears turn from soft pink to deep crimson, until his entire face was completely burning up. I bit the inside of my cheek, fighting desperately to hold back a massive smile. I knew if I let out even one giggle, my tough girl act would be totally ruined. Honestly, when I handed him that gym membership card, my own hand was trembling a little bit, too. He just didn't notice my nerves at all, because his eyes were glued entirely to my name printed on the plastic, staring at it like it was a lifeline. I had written out that posture rehabilitation plan with complete sincerity. Heck, I stayed up an entire night drafting the thing. I didn't know him. I didn't know his name, and I had absolutely zero clue what he did for a living. All I knew was that every single night, late in the quiet hours of the night, he would sit right there by the window, hunched over his computer like a goblin, ruining his spine, staring at the screen, and secretly glancing out just to watch me. I just couldn't help myself. As a fitness trainer, when you watch someone's physical health get destroyed day by day, it's totally impossible to just turn a blind eye. At least, that's the excuse I told myself. But Chloe was completely right. If he had been some creepy 50-year-old dude, I probably would have just shoved a stretching pamphlet into his mailbox. I definitely wouldn't have bought him a fruit platter. I wouldn't have purposely sabotaged my own curtain rod. And I absolutely wouldn't have spent every single night showing off yoga routines in my living room that I didn't even need to do. So, when he nervously asked me if my curtains were actually broken, I almost burst out laughing right in his face. I boldly told him mine were broken too, and he didn't even try to call my bluff. His eyes were practically sparkling, a suppressed smile tugging hard at the corners of his lips. He clearly saw right through my ridiculous lie, but he was just too sweet to say it out loud. This guy, he can be incredibly dense, but he's also so damn sweet. Like later, When he came storming over in the middle of the night to confront me, wildly demanding to know if I was just doing all this to get revenge on Hank, I seriously wanted to pop his head right off just to see what kind of garbage was rattling around inside his brain. Who the hell was Hank, anyway? In my entire world, there was only that one shy guy by the window, nervously rubbing the back of his neck. Who else could I possibly care enough to remember? But then, my best friend Chloe completely threw me under the bus over the phone. She exposed all the embarrassing stuff I'd said, like how he yawned like a cute little cat, and how devastatingly good he looked in just a plain white t-shirt. When I said those things, I thought they were top-secret girl talk confessions, but it turned into a total public execution of my pride. But when he heard it all, he just smiled. Even after I hurled a couch throw pillow out of sheer embarrassment, smacking him right in the face, that stupid, gorgeous smile never left his lips. Seeing that smile just made me think, fine, if my best friend sold me out, so be it. This was totally worth it. Sometime after that whole messy drama with Chance, there was a night when my neighbor didn't turn his lights on. I was stretching in my living room, and when I glanced across the way, his apartment was entirely pitch black. But even in the dark, I could still faintly trace his silhouette, sitting right there by the window, perfectly motionless, just watching over me. My heart absolutely ached for him. You see, when this guy gets upset, he completely shuts down. No yelling, no throwing fits, and zero complaining. He just sits there, all alone in the pitch black, silently swallowing every ounce of his pain and frustration, like it's his sole burden to bear. It broke me, honestly. It reminded me of how he used to press himself right up against his window frame, just to quietly watch me. He totally thought he was being this stealthy guy, secretly peeking, but in reality, he was just a lonely soul trying to get close to someone, using the absolute only way he knew how. He was way too terrified to actually knock on my door, and too scared to even say a single word. So, he just stayed glued to that window, watching me from a safe distance. Well, screw that. I sprinted right over and pounded on his door, and the moment I pulled his head down to rest against my shoulder, man, I could feel his broad shoulders trembling ever so slightly. He didn't shed a single tear, but he let out this incredibly long, heavy, utterly exhausted breath. Right then and there, I made a vow. This guy's curtains? I was never, ever going to let him close them again. I didn't care if they were genuinely broken or if it was just some desperate act. Flash forward to our actual wedding day. He leaned in close and asked if my curtains had actually been broken back then, or if I faked the whole thing. So, I hit him with the truth. He literally stepped back half a pace, just staring at me. His eyes completely widened, filling with this mix of pure shock, warm amusement, and something so insanely deep it's hard to even put into words. It was like watching someone finally snap the very last piece of a massive puzzle into place. "I was actually the one watching you first," I whispered. He squeezed my hand tight, his palm feeling so incredibly warm and safe. "So, do I get to keep watching you forever now?" he asked softly. I just ducked my head and smiled like an absolute idiot. Honestly, our curtains had been broken for half a year, then fixed, yanked down again, totally torn off, and reinstalled so many times. But eventually, we just gave up and moved in together. And guess what? We didn't need those stupid curtains at all anymore. Though, funny enough, the curtains in our living room are still left wide open to this very day. And nope, it's definitely not because they're broken. We've just finally gotten used to it.